Okay folks, I figured while I'm building a box, or in this case actually rebuilding, I wanted to show you my tape and glue technique in case it helps somebody else. You may have to adapt it a little bit according to your needs, but here's what I'm doing. I start with one of the longest sides, in this case actually a side piece, based on the design of this particular box, but I start with a long side. I apply a couple of pieces of tape to each end, which I'll show you in a second. I flip it over. I secure the sides with the tape, but that's not permanent, it's temporary, and it allows for me to treat the tape kind of like a hinge, so I can lay it down like that. That'll allow me to put glue right in this spot here, and then tip it back up, and that'll be glued. Like so, and then I can tip up the sides into the glue, and the tape helps keep it still aligned. In this case, that sets me up to put in the base now. Of course, now I just realized that I need to put the glue up along the base of each of the ends, so I can actually tip them down and do that. Like so. And in this rare case, my base is actually two pieces, so I'm going to have to glue up along this edge and that edge on the other piece. And that forms up the base. Now I'm going to glue up along the top edge so I can put the other side on, then I'll add more tape. There's the glue and the side. And now part of the key to my whole technique is that I have a piece of tape on the side here. I'm going to do this with more pieces of tape, but ultimately I'm going to take this and I'm going to pull to form a clamping pressure on it. That'll hold these sides together, and if I do the same on the opposite side, I can actually pull things together with the tape. It's not quite as strong as a clamp, but ultimately it's going to work. And in the case of this box, it's actually built with a lot of scrap wood, which explains the two pieces on the bottom instead of one long piece. But once it's all built, and I'll let it cook for 24 hours, and I'll come back, there will be gaps, and I'm going to show you how to fill those gaps in. Okay, so that's it all together, but one thing I've noticed that does help sometimes, if you want to increase your clamping pressure with tape, you can actually run a piece of tape all the way across and down the sides a bit, or even all the way around the box. That'll really ensure that it's not going to move on you. In this case, I'm just going to go right along one of the sides here because I feel like it needs just a little bit more. So I'm just going to run that across and pull down hard to ensure that it's clamped good from the top against the end pieces. And I'm also going to do one along the base. Now that should hold it long enough to set up, and once it's set up, then I'll have to deal with filling in some of the gaps. Unfortunately, because this wood does not all fit perfectly together, I'm going to end up with these gaps. If you have a professional shop and you've got all the equipment and you can cut perfect 90-degree angles and all of that, then a lot of this isn't really going to matter. And if you happen to have the clamps, go ahead and use them. They'll give you more pressure than the tape will. But in a pinch, and if you can get the tape for cheap enough so that it doesn't end up exceeding the cost of some new clamps, in my case I just go down to the local less than $1 store, and I pick up a fairly large roll of masking tape there, and the masking tape will come off the bare wood pretty easily without causing a problem. So this is the technique I've chosen to use to put these things together, and it seems to be working as long as you've got the right kind of glue. Okay, now that that's done, I had promised you folks that I was going to show you how I fill in some of the gaps. As it turns out, the box that I was working on a couple of days ago while I was shooting all of that is now pretty much done, but I have another box that needs some gap filling. So let me show you. I'm going to try and pick this up and show you. Got stuck to the paper. Let's see if I can get you a view of the daylight coming through there. There, maybe you can see that on the left side on the bottom of this box. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this around And ultimately I'm going to put, and you can really kind of see it there, that there is a gap. I'm going to put a piece of tape over this gap, and I'm going to basically form a sort of formwork or a dam, however you want to call it. And once that's in, then I'll be able to essentially just drop glue in there and let it set. And the one thing with this is you have to let the glue set for a while. In the case of this glue, it'll create a bond within 20-30 minutes, but you really don't want to disturb it for 24 hours. So I'm going to have to let it, what I call, cook for 24 hours. It'll just sit out here. It is a little cold. I might bring it inside, but it'll sit out. The glue will fill that gap in. If you have multiple gaps, like if you have them on the bottom, let me sort of see if I can sort of give you an idea. If I were to have gaps on the bottom here and also have gaps on the side, like I actually have a gap that I filled in here, and you can see where I put a piece of tape and filled it in. You can see the glue. If you have both of those, you're going to have to do it in different stages, because if you put, let's say, glue on the bottom and then you turn it to go put glue there, that glue on the bottom is going to drip right out. Gravity is just going to take hold and move your glue around. So you have to do all the stuff on the bottom first, and then do all the stuff on the sides after that. And as many times as you have to rotate the box to get your gaps filled, that's what you have to do. But it seems to be working pretty well, as evidenced by the completed box here. That's the one I had showed you before, but I've already filled in some areas, like right in the middle there. I don't know how well you can see that. So that's that part, filling in the gaps, and that pretty much wraps up this little demo.